Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to video game news. Today is Monday, December 29th, 2025, so probably the last day. I guess I could click on a clock and calendar and see that. No, I guess Wednesday will be the last day of the year. And yeah, there's still some slowness going on, I guess is the best way to describe it, as far as any new news actually coming out. So this again will probably be a shorter stream. I've had a pretty good experience in the past weekend of cleaning and decluttering. Still a ton of that, still moving furniture, still just like trying to get things organized, maybe going in circles more than I'd like, but yeah, there is a lot of that going on, and a lot of playing Vampire Survivors. Vampire Survivors is a super in-depth experience that hides all of its depth, and you just have to unlock more and more. And as you keep on playing 30 hours in, you realize that this is a completely different game than what it sells itself as when you first play it on that first run. In fact, it's too different of a game, frankly, for its own good. But yeah, I'm playing a lot of it. I'm also, weirdly, playing a lot of it on my Steam Deck. But one thing I'm going to have to realize is that I'm probably going to have to start playing games on my Steam Deck in like offline mode if I can do that. I think I can, just because I leave the game running, or some game running, on my computer so often. So like Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel is running right now in the background for audio reasons, and that alone running means I can't log in and play a different game on my Steam Deck. I wish Steam would loosen that up a little bit, but the reason why they don't do that is for save file sync reasons and for just the generic reasons of cheating. I did manage to update the CSS on a lot of files, and I even threw in a JavaScript auto scroller, but as we look at the Steam DB 24-hour peak concurrent chart here, there is still room for improvement in both. One, compared to what I've done with Steam pages, this is still really small, and pretty obviously there's room to scale up these fonts here, at the very least, to take up more space. But in general, I think there's room to probably scale up everything to be a lot bigger, because this is the type of page that might look okay if you're looking at it on your cell phone, but then might also not look okay. Another issue I realized is that the bottom of the page, once I had changed something, was getting cut off. And even now, looking on OBS, it looks like the bottom of the page is still cut off, because it should have showing 100, 1 out of 100, and then the page numbers at the bottom here, and I'm not seeing that, and that shouldn't be the case at all. And I've pretty much given up on looking at it on YouTube's own page, because YouTube's streaming page is frankly inaccurate in what it actually depicts. I also think I'm gonna need a better thumbnail. Yeah, YouTube system is ridiculously worse than Streamlabs' vertical streaming system is. So I can only hope that they improve upon it. That being said, I wouldn't expect them to fix it very quickly because they talked a big game about integrating vertical streaming, and then they took nearly 6 months, it felt like, to actually unlock the feature and let people use it. They also have been talking a big game about their A/B testing with titles and thumbnails. It was A/B testing with thumbnails first, and now titles and thumbnails. And I tried that with a video several weeks ago, and I got the results to say the results were inconclusive. Your video was not given enough impressions by YouTube to give us a chance to decide which title or thumbnail was the best. So inherently, in that non-results results, they're telling me, hey, effectively we didn't promote, because that's what impressions are. We didn't promote your channel or give it a chance to succeed because A, we're getting other people to pay us money to do that, or B, because we've effectively shadow banned everybody. Like everybody we don't like, everybody that doesn't hit it off on a YouTube channel immediately, everybody that is a gamer in that category in particular. And I say everybody, but I mean really 98%, 99% of all content creators are just effectively shadow banned because the algorithm is designed to not actually ban anybody and not tell people about it, which is what actually shadow ban is, but it's just designed not to promote new content from new content creators. It's smaller content creators. And the hype leaderboards and all of that has done bupkis, I think, to improve that scenario. Alright, let's scroll to the top of the page here, and I will show off the auto scroll. This is the most wishlisted game. This is actually the 24-hour peak concurrent chart. And I had it set. I'll reload the page and show what it looks like. I had it set so that there would be a delay before it starts auto scrolling, and then it just starts to auto scroll at 1 pixel per 100 milliseconds or so, which is perhaps too fast, particularly at this, well, even at this level of scale, that is perhaps too fast. So it definitely seems like it could use some more delay, but also I need to hook it into an event where I click on the page, or where I have the mouse cursor not on the page, which it would make some sense to have it be an event where the mouse is just taken completely off the page, which means off the window effectively, and then it starts to scroll, and then when the mouse cursor comes back it stops scrolling, because that right now doesn't really work too well. Inherently the delay doesn't work either, because when my macro opens all of these stories and websites, the delay starts instantly, and so even 5 minutes later you're going to come back and every single page is going to be at the bottom. So I'm just creating another problem for myself when now pages are going to be at the exact bottom of the screen. And then I'd have to reload the pages, and that would just waste more time. Another problem I've created for myself, and you probably will hear it today, is that by adding more cushions, I've finally gotten to a point where my chair feels a little bit more comfortable, but I've added a whole bunch more cushions again, and on top of the pressure alternating pad, or actually under the pressure alternating pad. But that has raised me up in the chair, which is probably a good thing because my legs are long enough and this chair is too low for me, so it being higher helps me stand up and not feel like I'm going to fall over completely. But yeah, the fact that I've raised myself higher, though, means that relatively speaking, my microphone stand is lower. And so I'm going to have to uncrank the tighten down part, which is tightened down quite a bit, to lift up the microphone, because now it is really kind of low and you can hear me pointing my head downward toward the microphone. It's much more different than looking over the microphone than just speaking. Which, yeah, I'm looking over the top of the microphone always, but this is really looking over the top of the microphone. It does occur to me that maybe having a microphone right in front of your face might affect your vision somewhat, but I don't think so. I think you probably just tune it out. You can also see that I've been talking this whole time and the scroll is still going. So I might create yet another issue with the auto scroll, in that it doesn't scroll fast enough. Like, it's scrolling slow now so you can see everything. Great. And you have plenty of time to read, and I don't think it's going to really hurt people's eyes too much. But it is also still kind of slower than if I was just moving the mouse wheel up and down in a more herky-jerky motion. I also did just the briefest of research into replacing my desktop ticker app, which takes RSS feeds and puts the scrolling text at the top, with something more internal. The first step on that is not going to be automated, it seems, and I am going to have to just run like a PowerShell command, which then would have to be changed to a Linux command later to download the RSS feeds. Just download them as text files, then manipulate the text files using Advanced Scene Switcher. Seems to be the first step, and then it's probably going to be a lot of dirty regular expressions. And really that's a project for another day, because there's still tons of work to be done. Some work didn't get done over the weekend as far as rechanging pages, just because I didn't have source pages to remind me to work on them, plus I was playing Vampire Survivors, and once I launched that game, boy do I not want to unlaunch it and do something different. What I'm doing is playing Vampire Survivors, leaving it open on my computer, and then taking a 40-minute to an hour break, cleaning and decluttering. One thing I think I'm learning is that if you have any photo albums in your house or in your life at all, stop. Stop putting photos in photo albums. Start scanning photos into the computer with a high quality digital photo scanner, or just pay Kodak or some other scanning service to scan them for you. I found a weird set of like 4 duplicates of photos, and the corners are cut off of 3 of the photos very precisely, almost certainly done via machine cutter of some sort. Cutout tool, probably, not something too complicated. And I wonder if that is something that was universally a way of indicating, hey, this is a duplicate photo versus this is the original photo. Not that there's, I think, really anything different in the process of making duplicate photos. Yeah, I don't think there's really anything in the process. I'm not even sure there's an automated process to make duplicate photos. I think it's probably the exact same process of just exposing the negative to make a print multiple times over. Although that probably is super automated and was super automated even decades ago. But yeah, it is weird to have one square edge photo and then 3 things. But anyways, my main point is stop putting things in photo books. Go back and look at your old photo books if they are 20, 30 years old. They are probably already showing signs of yellowing. If you used any kind of tape, the tape is probably very yellow and brittle. And more than likely the plastic is crinkly and starting to break down, because all plastic, all tape, tape is plastic with glue on it. All of that was not designed to be acid free, was not designed to be archival quality stuff. And so while these photo books may have preserved your photos for a few decades, they are now at risk of destroying the photos, where the photos themselves are relatively stable, although some photos do, older photos do have chemical issues too, and that they slowly start to break down too. Really, really old photos are showing signs of them fading and becoming more sepia toned than they originally were. That's why digital copies are what people in the future are going to want, and what you really should be shooting for. And yeah, frankly, if you scan in a bunch of real old photos and then put the originals in cold storage somewhere in a firebox somewhere, that's your best bet. I wouldn't recommend tossing them, but yeah, a deep storage, not actually cold storage, would be the thing to do. A box in a garage, a fireproof box in a garage, is just about as far as the originals probably should be kept, unless they're specific photos, of course, you're actually displaying. On that though, I have to admit that I did a little bit of pre-work, just a little bit of work, I guess, on, I'm going to scroll down this with the mouse wheel now while it's scrolling and just show the difference in time it would have taken me to get from the top to the bottom. It's just a matter of seconds. Although in this case it doesn't really matter because I'm rambling on while this is happening. Although at a certain point I might as well just have it bounce back up. And I'm not sure I can do that. I might be able to have it bounce down and bounce up and then bounce down and then bounce up. That would be the smoothest way to do it. You could have it wrap around and go back to the top and scroll down, which for bigger blocks of text would make more sense. I imagine the actual numbers of people playing is not particularly too high. Probably a little bit higher after December 25th Christmas, but people do have free time, but they tend to take all that free time and have obligations. That was one of the things that when I was a kid irritated me quite a bit, is that you have, to a kid, so little free time, and I think nowadays it's even way worse as far as schools go, and well, schools and family obligations and church activities, if you're into that, all just suck up a kid's time, which might be a good thing if they have nothing better to do. But if they want to do something else, which is mostly play video games or watch TikTok or something like that, it just feels like a burden. And so I never really enjoyed most of those activities, and got very, very little out of most of those activities. And then school comes around and potentially can punish you and force you to go into summer school and waste even more time in detention and waste even more of your time. Which, yeah, school effectively is babysitting slash wasting a person's youth. In a lot of ways, not that school isn't necessary or can't be fun and good, it's just, yeah, a lot of it is wasting time. Yeah, particularly in Christmas. I would have loved to have my entire Christmas break to myself every year and been able to play 1, maybe 2 games in a marathon. So I guess this Christmas may be a great example of me doing exactly what I wanted to do, not really having to deal with anything I didn't want to deal with other than cleaning and decluttering and just playing Vampire Survivors. And in general, just being left alone and not forced to engage in false frivolity and cheerfulness, if I can say the word, to be your true self is certainly always a great blessing, even if it is just a grumpy bah humbug type character. I don't know why people celebrate. If it weren't for the religious aspects, celebrating Christmas in the winter would never happen. You would definitely have a better celebration in a better time of year. Yeah. Because, yeah, the winter is just really a time of slowness and boringness. Do I have anything else to really say about wrapping up things here? Or warming up. Not wrapping up. No, I guess I will leave it at that. So, same thing, most wishlisted games. Actually, let me open this back up and then drag this to a new tab. And then we'll go with most wishlisted games. It still has work that needs to be done to it. The images I'd like to be bigger. The text in particular definitely has room to be 2 or 3 times as big as it is. And yeah, when you actually see a Steam page, you'll see just how drastically different the scale is from this big chart versus Steam pages. Yeah, which the Steam pages still need a little bit of work too. There's 2 things in particular I still want to do. I want to get the thumbnail to scale and take up the full width, which takes just a little bit more of messing around with the CSS, and the price label, I think, is something I would want to see moved upward. It's not quite exactly the same as making YouTube shorts, but it looks a lot like the YouTube shorts. Which is what we really want. This is kind of fairly useless to show this much information. There is an argument to take something like this wishlist, most wishlisted game, and just eliminate the price, eliminate the rating, eliminate the release, eliminate the followers, eliminate the 7-day gain. If that was the case, then the page wouldn't look like that, but it would just be this square section. And I think that would make a lot more sense in this case. It's just eliminate information that's going to be too small, or for the most part not even there. I did briefly look into a Tuya connectable birdhouse. I am in the middle of this second wave of paper wasps invading my house, and they're getting wild because they usually in the past have been in the kitchen, and I've been spraying bug spray, aerosol bug spray in the kitchen, and now they seem to just be moving further and deeper into the other side of the house. And they're very lethargic and they're very cold, and so I wonder if the cold weather may be killing them off, or if the bug spray is killing them off. And this may be just one last gasp for them. But as a preventative measure, I looked it up, and sadly there really aren't too many things that eat paper wasps as far as like spiders. But there are a few birds that will eat the larvae of paper wasps, for the most part. And I'd like to get bees, but actually getting bees makes paper wasps worse, because yeah, the bees can't really kill the wasps. It's the other way around. The wasp will try and take over bee hives and use them. So yeah, the problem with a Tuya specific smart birdhouse is that there's maybe one on AliExpress I could get, and that's just about it. Everything else has its own app. Almost certainly all of them are using ESP32 chips, but that doesn't inherently mean that they are using the Tuya code base or in any way would connect to Tuya. Even some of the apps are possibly based off of Tuya, but would still not work with the Tuya smart home system. Now, as far as smart automation and a birdhouse goes, I don't know how much automation really could go with that. Like, maybe you could have a light that goes off or goes on when a bird is detected in the birdhouse, but even then would probably just startle the birds and make them not want to stay in that birdhouse. Yeah, it would be very interesting to see if certain birds actually were happy to see the light come on. Yeah, all of them are solar with battery things. Most or almost all birdhouses with cameras in them are trying to sell you a AI subscription feed that would detect what kind of bird it is with, I imagine, pretty low accuracy, and have you pay extra for that, or extra for storage of the video footage. It's an interesting thing that could be a nice, like, middle school, high school project where you could have a camera document baby birds growing up. But yeah, the real solution I think at the moment would be to not have any smarts in it and just have a regular birdhouse, or 4 or 5, I don't know how many I could stick around my yard. It's not particularly that big, to see if that would encourage somebody to move in. And I guess that would be my goal, would be to have somebody move in. I could just put out like fresh water and bird seed, but then I would have to go out and put fresh water and bird seed out fairly frequently, and I don't get out and about in the yard that often to try and encourage birds to go. And yeah, I've only made it worse in that I had to cut down a couple trees, and so the only trees in my yard right now tend to be either very young, not likely to have a nest in them in the first place, or way too tall and not likely to have a nesting spot because the branches are too high up. But yeah, the thing that's more common than a birdhouse with a camera is the slightly different bird feeder with a camera. Those two don't tend to have TUYA integration in them as far as I can see. And that would get back to the point of that would get back to the point of, oh, I lost my train of thought. Whatever. So that's a thought. It's winter right now, so I don't think it is quite the season that birds are out and about anyways, which does make me question whether this is a strategy of trying to get rid of paper wasps even makes sense. Here we can see Moby Games scrolling down this day in history, which the text here again could probably be improved a bit more. Right now this is at 150%. If I was to scale it up to 200%, that is fairly reasonable, I think, as far as its size goes. Still, the majority of game titles are not long enough for that to be an issue. That being said, you can see that these are just tiny thumbnails, and even at 200%, these tiny thumbnails do not really show much of anything. Yeah, this might just be a case where specific pages will need calculated scroll times. Which I don't know if that's doable, but it probably is. There I am flailing about again and hitting the microphone stand. Yeah. Keep the microphone stand from falling randomly and still being able to swing 90 degrees so it's out of my way. When I stand up, I have to crank down the tightening mechanism that holds it up to a certain height very tightly. So it's not something like I can just reach over there and unscrew it. I'm gonna have to work on it. It's not to the point where I actually need a wrench or anything, but it is close to that point. Now in this case, I will say this page is not like it's not. Yeah, you can. This thing is just rescaling completely, isn't it? Right, so that's about too big at 400%, but at 300%, it's nice and easy to read. And sure, some of this may wrap around, but I can actually see the pictures here at that scale. And this is like the first time that the pictures, I think, are more often than not bigger than the text. So yeah, I need to probably change the CSS just to get that to fit always. But right now, just using Firefox's zoom in function, which works slightly differently, that works pretty well. It lowers the resolution of what you're looking at. The scroll still is slow though. I don't know if I have too much more to talk about. So we are very much in the holiday taint where the ain't Christmas and it ain't New Year. But that seems to be fine by me. Yeah. In my effort to lower my water sewage bill, I'm still experimenting and pretending like I'm living on a space station and conserving as much water as reasonably possible. But there are definitely things that don't work there. As far as there are things I cook that are particularly greasy or liquidy or dirty, and I just don't have paper plates for all of that, and so then any bowls or plates that are dirty have just been sitting too long in my sink. I would say maybe a week and a half, and definitely mold is starting to grow, and you definitely don't want that happening. So yeah, I still end up doing the dishes, or should be doing the dishes at least once a week, not twice a month, which is what I'm really going for. Using baby wipes to wash my hands instead of water is probably saving a decent amount of water, or at least I hope. But yeah, showering, washing clothes, and flushing toilets, I really haven't any opportunity to reduce that usage too much. And at a certain point, if you did use no water, the drains in your house would just start to dry up, and so it's not even really a smart move to leave things alone. Yeah, you should flush a toilet at least once a month, even if it is in some room that's not being used. And really, you shouldn't have a room that's not being used that much. But yeah, I could see by the end of this, now 2 more months, I could see still using baby wipes as long as I've got them to wash my hands. There's been only a couple of times where I felt particularly dirty enough that I'd want to turn on the sink. Of course, I have motion activated sink faucets that I'm just lacking having a part handyman install yet. That would probably reduce the amount of water usage quite a bit from just turning it on it probably for full blast for a minute or two versus waving a toothbrush or waving your hands under a sink. The sad truth of this though is with residential billing and the scale that I'm working at, I wouldn't be surprised if this doesn't really save me much. If it saved me $20 over the course of 12 months, that would be great. If it saved me $40 over the course of 12 months, that would be probably the maximum. But you're still talking $480 for living in a very weird and ridiculous way that most people with family, or just most people in general, would not be willing to actually live like that. And yeah, the only reason I'm really doing this is just to get rid of plastic forks and knives and paper plates and baby wipes. Which, yeah, there's probably better things one could do with baby wipes than just wash your hands with them. If you're just trying to get rid of them, you could donate them to people who just had a baby, for instance. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see if that actually is worth it. Sadly, most of my bills are not manipulatable. My electricity bill is probably going to start going up again as it's weirdly going to start cooling faster than I thought it would. And every time I run my electric dryer, it is easily 2 or 3 kilowatts of extra power used. So a lot of power. And the microwave certainly has a lot of power, but it's not run that long, so I don't think my microwave usage is using up that much power. Actually, I could probably look at that since there's a smart plug on it and just get a general idea of what is going on. And as I open my phone, I'm reminded, yeah, the Amazon photos, Google photos, they don't have like similar image, not duplicate image, but just like similar image detection per se, and so you're not getting the kind of AI detection you might want from that. So I tried to upload all of those video game thumbnails, screenshots, and the naming there is pretty bad on a lot of them, and I was hoping it would let me manipulate and improve the names very quickly and easily, or at the very least look at the images and tell me if any of them were very similar. Deltarune and Undertale's logo, for instance, very similar unless you're looking specifically at the text. But they just don't have anything built into that. Okay. So, yeah, my worst day on the microwave this month was 555 watts, but my second worst day was 332 watts, and I would say on average the wattage is somewhere close to yeah, there's definitely days where it's less than 100. There's a whole bunch of charts here and it just doesn't really add too much. Right. Yeah, it's really only adding about 1/3 of a kilowatt every day at most. Much less than that. Yeah. Since installing this plug, which I think was maybe 2 months ago, it has used 10 kilowatts in total, and it's estimating, probably wrongly, that 10 kilowatts would be $146, so I don't think that's accurate at all. I think the decimal is in the wrong place, and it's probably closer to $1.46. So more than likely, if that is the right estimate, it would be 20 months before the price of the smart plug itself was paid off. Yeah. So as far as hyper focusing on saving electricity, you're not going to do it with a microwave, which really eliminates you down to electric dryers and air conditioning units. And yeah, I think air conditioner units are obviously the #1 issue as far as wasting electricity. And while a heat pump system is definitely what I recommend, I don't know if I've seen anybody talk about heat pump systems and be able to really show the comparison of the bills actually going down. Even though heat pumps are way more efficient, they still a relatively new technology. I did see one YouTuber doing a split system, mini split system for a heat pump that does look a lot more do-it-yourself like, and does start to make a lot more sense. I imagine this Black Mirror Bandersnatch is browser version has been taken down at this point. Let's actually look into that. But then also let's scroll down, because yeah, this is taking too long. Yeah, it's going to be very much a delicate balance as far as scrolling at a certain speed versus making the text way bigger. So if we visit the official site here, let's see. I just don't know. I'm not logged into Netflix on my computer, but I just don't know if this would actually play interactive wise. This, I assume, is just a trailer that they're playing right now. Weirdly, I don't hear the audio playing on this. Yeah, I'm still not hearing the audio play on this. That's weird. I did play this Bandersnatch, got 2 or 3 endings, and found it overall fairly boring. I'll look into that some more later and see if maybe it does actually still have playability. If it does have playability, it would be the last version of that is playable, because they definitely have taken that down from the Netflix app and everywhere else. Yep. There's two things about my Roku TCL TV worth mentioning. One, I found out you can go into the privacy settings, and this might be new, and stop it from taking a screenshot of whatever you're looking at, even if you have something like a Roku TV stick plugged into it, and then making a hash of that screenshot and sending that to their ad servers to make a profile on you and run ads against you, basically spying on you. But the TCL TVs have that, Roku TVs in general have that, and all of them have different sneaky places where you might be able to turn it off, or you might not be able to turn it off. So yeah, it definitely explains why my Roku TV for years now has been the #1 device that is just constantly trying to send information back to logs, and my ad blocking privacy protecting ad guard home has been blocking that. But yeah, if you can get the actual TV to stop trying to send the data, that will free up bandwidth, or more importantly, it will free up your logs to be much more manageable. Inherently, if you have a million entries in a log, that is just going to have a human trying to look at the log be very irritated and less likely to actually be able to find what is important. And so you can overwhelm humans just by flooding logs with repetitive content. And there's filtering, but it's not the greatest of filtering. Here's a Detective Conan Game Boy game. Sold as case closed originally in the United States because the Arthur Conan Doyle estate, I guess they were afraid they were going to get sued for naming a detective character after Arthur Conan Doyle. But yeah, the Case Closed series. I wish more of that was available in the West and easier to find, because it's a long-running series. Certainly, murder mystery of the week type series. But it also has a lot of movies and things that I just don't think have been translated to English or brought over. And sadly, there's probably a lot of that. Although nowadays, almost every new anime series, regardless of how good it is, gets released into the West. And with streaming now and potentially just AI translation and low effort translations, things are getting brought over. I finished watching season 3 of One Punch Man, and boy, is that whole series just pigeonholed into a ridiculous aspect that the entire season really is just about building up and showing a whole bunch of new secondary characters and ignoring Saitama, the main character, or the titular character, because the second the titular character shows up in the last episode, which, yeah, he's basically been absent the entire season, he attacks the final boss and punches him in one punch and defeats him, which is the whole gag and joke, is that no matter what he does, one punch kills every single boss, high level boss, that gets stronger and stronger. Which, you know, it's pretty ridiculous, I would say, as far as how that goes. And I imagine it just makes more sense in manga form when all you have to do is animate a few frames and panels and say a few things, whereas in the animated form there's just a lot more that really needs to happen, a lot more talking, a lot more animation, a lot more movement. Even in the worst aspects of Dragon Ball Z, I don't think we ever really got to the point where a fight was Goku shows up and then does Spirit Bomb or Kamehameha and just immediately Kamehameha, I guess is how you really pronounce it. It's been a long time since I've thought of that word. Yeah, he doesn't just show up and do one of those attacks and that's it. There is a lot of fighting, too much fighting probably in Dragon Ball Z, where it's back and forth, a lot of regular punches or fast speed punches, a lot of talking, a lot of being knocked down and partially defeated and then rising back up. Boiling that down to just one punch and the enemy is dead is ridiculous. And particularly in season 3 of One Punch Man, since they were rushing to show so many characters, they are not really even showing good fights for the secondary characters. A lot of times the secondary characters are also just beating enemies in one quick fight, when those fights could be a lot longer. Yeah. I think famously it's known that all the creator of One Punch Man wanted to really do is draw a bunch of interesting characters, which really just speaks that he should have been I assume it's he should have just been a character designer or animator, and then he should have handed the character and designs over to a writer to write more of a story, and then in that collaboration they would have a longer story to have different poses of those characters. Or maybe he just creates a whole bunch of characters and hands those characters over to somebody else to make entirely different series based on those characters. I wouldn't be surprised if that's how Ghibli worked sometimes, is that he would just say, here's a character design, now go do something with it. Still watching Crapopolis, although that may be cancelled. Watching it on Hulu. Yeah, to really just highlight how bad One Punch Man Season 3 was, as I started the final episode, which is really only 6 episodes per season, and paid zero attention to it at all, and had to re-watch it from the beginning to actually see any of the visuals on it. And even in seeing all of the visuals in it, I still was very unimpressed for how much it jumped around and how much there was really just no content worth looking at there. I'm into season 2 of Ranma 1/2, and I think season 2 in particular is going in a different direction, which might be slightly better. There was nothing wrong with season 1 of Ranma 1/2. You just have to realize that it is a super long, super old anime series, so that takes a long time. This game, Alter Ego, I played this on my phone. It's too slow to really recommend it. I wish there was just a take out the clicker aspect to the game, because I think the story in particular is kind of fascinating, as it asks you several questions about ego, id, and superego, and your reactions give branching path reactions of a almost like psychologist evaluating you, but also you affecting this psychologist type character. Yeah, I'm not sure it ever came to anything else. There's another game called Alter Ego, or several other games called Alter Ego, but they're not the same game. Let's see. See, this is a problem too, is that if I am in the middle of something here and I click play on the video, it is just going to slowly scroll up, and so that's going to be affected too. But yeah, that's what you mostly do, is you just click on things while walking down that hallway, and then you have these small interaction sections that you unlock where you answer questions and get an evaluation. So yeah, there's a case here where maybe with Bakelite Linux and with the idea of Steam games being able to, or Steam machines being able to play Android games, this might be one to show off, but really don't know. Apparently there's a spin-off game, Alter Ego Complex. The animation looks fairly different here. When did this come out? It was updated on October 6th. But no telling when it was originally made. Guess you have to go to about this game 2020. Yeah. Yeah, the trailer here is a different art style, but it seems to be showing kind of the almost exact same gameplay, and I don't know if this is something you actually would play any differently. It really says two things about the sad state of mobile games on Android or Apple, in that they don't really get any kind of coverage and aren't really that interesting to play. Why does it have the YouTube short aspect to it? Because it's 30 seconds, I guess. It's not really trying to make it full screen. A lot of philosophy, particularly Japanese philosophy books, are mentioned in Alter Ego, and yeah, I'm not going to likely be able to actually read them and understand them in English. I don't think I would ever read them, and I don't think most people that read them would understand. So yeah, it's also a shame when you have something that feels even slightly good, that there really is no infrastructure for a Microsoft to come in and acquire this game and say, we'll take this general concept and do something different with it. I imagine there probably is some kind of visual novel on Steam that's similar, I have no idea what it would be. And yeah, by far, the games that are good enough, yeah, we can see that there's still a lot of room for improvement on the size here. My standards have kind of changed from over the weekend as far as what I was going for as far as size, and now I really want to come back and change it. The games that are good enough tend to have Steam releases, Pokemon TCG Pocket being perhaps an exception, which I'm still playing that, and I'm still playing Memento Mori, but I can say I have pulled the trigger and uninstalled Magical Modica, or Modica Magica, Magi, etc., whatever its name was. After breaking myself of the habit for a couple of days, was able to just force my finger to actually uninstall it, and I think I am done with trying to play anything that is inspired by anime games. Pokemon was a game first, so that's not the same thing, but yeah, if there is going to be a game I play on mobile, which I don't think there is going to be, because I have now found a better use of my time in that I can play on my Steam Deck even when my computer is doing something different, either Balatro or Vampire Survivors. And I think there's going to be enough grind in those two things alone to keep me busy. So anytime I need to take a break and lie down, I am now very much pulling out my Steam Deck more and my phone less. Although I am still doing the dailies for Memento Mori, and I think I'll stick with that. That being a game that is exclusively on, or originally, I guess is the right word to use, on mobile, and then has a Steam version, so even that game I could play on my Steam Deck if I wanted to. The battery aspects might prove that to be somewhat wasteful, but it would work. The touchscreen aspects of Memento Mori, though, do certainly highlight where mobile games even brought to Steam still really want mouse and keyboard input, whereas the Steam Deck's gamepad inputs are going to be less effective. I don't anticipate that there will be any new mobile game that comes out that even catches my attention until the new Shift Up game comes, which I guess I am freeing up myself some time and room for that, and then I probably will jump into the new Shift Up game and see what happens there. It'll be interesting to see if I'm really willing at that point to commit back to playing 3 mobile games. I'd be listening to a lot more podcasts and playing a lot more mobile games if I was out and about doing things, but I am not. So I just have better options as far as things to do with my time. Also, it's certainly worth pointing out that video game, gacha games, and mobile games in particular are just doing very poorly. There's a lot more red than there is green for November, and when the December numbers come out, I imagine we're going to see a lot more red. Yeah. I thought I might stick with Magica Modica all the way till the service gets shut down, but that really would just be a level of stubbornness for no real reason to stick to it. Right, so here is the 100% size of the Steam hardware survey of November that is going to be changed pretty quickly. At 120%, it's edge to edge, but it still looks pretty good at that scale. So this is something I don't think really needs to change. And I'm really at this point now where I'm assuming that if a little bit on my screen is getting clipped off in OBS, that's probably OBS is not depicting things right. Because yeah, the preview of OBS seems to not be 100% pixel for pixel match either, but obviously some of this is getting clipped off the edge here. This is the right size to bring it down to this. That's that way the edge here is not clipped off at all, and there is actually a little bit of margin on the edge just for safety's sake. Yeah, again, my chart, don't care about it. At some point I'll stop it from opening, but I keep forgetting about that. Actually, if I'm gonna leave pages open to work on it, let's fix that. As far as Vampire Survivors, it says we're 100 hours in, and this is 156 to 243. The font here could be bigger. Certainly, I don't know if I really want to waste my time making the font here just bigger for my own view. But yeah, that's kind of secondary. That's the only actual game I've played in the last week, I would say. And Blatro. And yeah, Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel I'm not really playing. Winter sale is still going on. It's worth pointing that out and mentioning that. We still have till January 5th. Do I think I'll spend any more money on video games? No. I should probably both be proud of myself and admonish myself for buying no more Lego, but admonish myself for buying any Lego in the first place. There is really no room in my life right now to actually assembling the Lego sets, and no room in my house to actually display Lego sets. The hope is by the end of next month I might have some better foundation there. Yeah. The Steam Awards winners won't, I assume, actually be announced until after January 5th. And yeah, Christmas has happened, and so I imagine there is just not a lot of people that got new computers. Or maybe a lot of people did get new computers, but they're going to be kind of underpowered. I heard they are now potentially selling computers without RAM, and you have to bring your own RAM because of the RAM shortage and hoarding and price gouging that's going on. I'm not anticipating 2026 to be particularly a good year for games that actually get released. And it definitely doesn't seem like it's going to be a good year for hardware. So I'm yawning here. And when it rains, it pours. Perhaps very strategically, if we can applaud the activities of China. They are once again doing major were going to eventually invade Taiwan style exercises, military exercises, near TSMC's factories in Taiwan and Taiwan in general, which, yeah, as China is creating their own GPUs because they've been banned from getting AI level high quality GPUs from America and from NVIDIA, it might very well become a case where them destroying or at least blockading TSMC's factories in Taiwan would create a opening for Chinese GPUs to be the only thing you can get, or Intel GPUs. I don't believe AMD GPUs are not made by TSMC. Like pretty much all the chiplets are coming from TSMC, I think. So yeah, AMD would suffer similarly. I think only Intel might be the ones that wouldn't suffer. The problem with having now played Vampire Survivors and just seeing how much content there is, it's going to be really hard to justify playing Megabonk. It's just going to be too similar and it's going to be too much content, I would imagine. Or you play Megabonk and you realize it's a lot less content because it's a newer game, then get unfairly dissatisfied against it. Yeah. We should have been willing to build factories around the world for TSMC to make chips all around the world. Problem with that is that the long hours and low pay and low labor law protections of Taiwan made it financially advantageous, and so building a TSMC factory, which they started to do, I don't know if they got too far with it, in the United States doesn't really work because you don't have people who are first educated, that's a big deal, too, and second willing to work in those conditions. So yeah, the short term would be the European Union, which is really our only hope to step in and protect Taiwan, because the United States is unlikely to do it at the moment. But the long term is that they're going to have to build factories, and that doesn't protect the country of Taiwan, even if they do build factories in other places. And it is a shame that when the talk of the eventual invasion and takeover of yet another country by China is discussed, it really is just, we want our graphics cards and we want to protect TSMC and we want our computers, instead of saying, hey, there's human beings here that do not want to be citizens of communist China, and they are going to be forced to be citizens of communist China through warfare, or they're going to get wiped out trying to defend their homeland. Oh, there was something else I wanted to mention. Oh yeah, I mentioned the European Union. European Union just announced a new Europe-only credit card payment processor system that they're going to scale up and run and create. It is Europe only, so anybody in outside of Europe that wants to get away from payment processors such as Stripe or Visa or MasterCard or PayPal may not get any real relief there, but the amount of pressure there alone might change. There is also a real thought that this payment processor is going to focus on not tracking people and not determining what and what can't be purchased by people, because it would be run by the European Union, thus multiple governments with multiple constitutions that would likely want to protect that. I hope this European Union credit card payment processor succeeds wildly to the point where it would become available to non-European Union citizens, and I wouldn't be surprised if you couldn't just fairly easily VPN into a European country and then create a credit card for Europe, for purchasing in Europe, and then maybe you wouldn't want to VPN into Germany specifically, but yeah, VPN into, say, France or Switzerland or something. And there might be a way that you could connect to Steam via Switzerland and buy games that maybe won't be available in the United States or purchasable with United States payment processors. So there is a potential here that this steamrolls. Of course, there is also very much a case that the reason why they're doing this is that the European Union is going to find itself at odds. I don't know if it's going to be full-out war, but who knows, with the United States, as the United States is, or the U.S. presidency in particular, is obsessed with taking over Greenland for some insane reason. I think it is a half ego, half thought that there are resources at Greenland that would be exploitable. See, and this looks exactly like Vampire Survivors, and I feel like that's perhaps the danger here, is that I play Vampire Survivors and I'm going to see a lot of games like Vampire Survivors, and then I'm going to either be burnt out on playing Vampire Survivors or Survivors likes, or I'm going to compare them too harshly. And this is not what the pages are supposed to look like. They're supposed to look like this at 120%. So, yeah. So this is what I've got it to as far as Steam pages. I know I've been mentioning it and not showing it. The thumbnail needs some work to stretch out a little bit further, and then the screenshots are here. I don't think I'm going to get around to actually speeding up the slideshow anytime soon, but definitely want that to be improved. And then I like that this sidebar is here. I don't want to just completely block it, but I want this section in particular to be higher, so that when you're at the top of the screen here, it shows the price. That also, with that setup, means that in most cases I don't need to move most of the warnings up higher and try and squeeze them into this now smaller empty space. There'll be a couple buttons here to make YouTube Shorts, but that's all I'm planning on adding. But the coming soon notification, the price tag, and maybe Steam Deck compatibility. I think Steam Deck compatibility is actually at the bottom of this column. And then you scroll down if you want to see more. And you can see that the page is much bigger visually here. This is much closer to what the YouTube shorts look like, and just goes way more pictorially than anything else. It's also worth pointing out that these pages are not included, so any Steam page will not start to auto scroll down, which in this case that wouldn't really help if it started scrolling down automatically. There are several magic users in Vampire Survivors, so the game pigeonholing you into being only a vampire, I mean only a magic user, doesn't really make sense. There definitely are some elements of Vampire Survivors where the game is a little hard. Some enemies are just too much of bullet sponges. Right, so we'll reload and see if we see any more refurbs. The assumption is that we will never see any LCD refurbs, and that by January 6th or so we'll see them just drop this tag completely. Although they may just keep this because there may be a warranty issue. How long is the warranty? Same 1-year warranty as a new Steam Deck. Okay, so it might be a year from now, and then we'll see this go away. More than likely that would be the case, is that after that 1-year point that anyone could have possibly bought an LCD, the 1-year warranty will have expired. 1-year warranties are not that long for a device like this, and it is a sad statement as just to the state of warranties. And yet you can see here the page looks pretty good at 120% without me really changing anything. And that is what I'm realizing, is that in a lot of these cases the pages look pretty good on their own without changing anything. Here we have Steam's top played games on the Steam Deck at 120%. I think the scale here is pretty good, but again, there's room for bigger text. Anywhere where I see negative space where text is, I want that text to get bigger. I want somebody with poor eyesight, like me, I guess now, to be able to bring on these streams and see that, hey, everything is nice and big and easy to read in vertical, and vertical is still adding some advantage in that it is actually showing more content versus horizontal, which, let's be honest, horizontal was also not really doing the greatest of jobs of showing content. Work on that some more. So here's the Video Games Chronicle interstitial thing, which just some rewarding here would possibly help. Plus, maybe we have 2 sentences here being broken into 2 lines. Maybe I should work on that. Yeah, that's not too bad as far as fitting on the screen. But there are no video games Chronicle articles. Like, nothing happened over the week that they reported on because they're just taking the week off, and that is going to be true for most mainstream video game journal sites. Here we have, for the Gematsu articles, a lot more work is necessary to get this to fit. So I'll have to work on that some more. I have a lot to work on, frankly. But as for Gematsu articles, Demon Bride additional game for PC launches December 30th. Battle of Angels and Demons. Yep. This is 100%. Perhaps there's too much margin still, and maybe the text could be bigger. I don't know. I don't know if I really want to go much bigger than this or not, because this fits in just like perfectly. The auto scroll here has probably kicked in and hit the bottom of the screen instantly and then stopped scrolling because it couldn't scroll any further. But yeah, a little bit of a margin issue, but otherwise almost perfect on this. Of course, if there was more text, that would be a thing, but I think on average there won't be more text. Now, this article, on the other hand, Sword and Fairy Remake official trailer, just has a set of screenshots, which do require scrolling down, otherwise it feels like it's full. Yeah, if I was to go full screen in this, it would just be to this point and to about that point that you actually see the screen. And yeah, I don't know if you're actually seeing the YouTube scroll bar or any of that. But one thing this does do is that if I move the mouse off the page, it would hide the watermarks in the lower right corner almost always, because all these trailers are just going to be 16:9 widescreen type images, at least for now. Now, we may start to see a split at some point in the future of mobile games that are played in vertical, having vertical videos, but outside of like YouTube, vertical videos is still too wildly different. Speaking of social medias, Twitter has, now called X, has introduced an edit image button that automatically gets placed on images, and you can use AI to change anybody's image into something different. And artists are rightfully upset about that and leaving Twitter, for the people who haven't already left Twitter. Because yeah, the last thing you want is to put out something promotional about anything or any kind of art, really, and then have somebody be able to, with the ease of clicking one button, AI change it into something that's not your original creation and that might be perverting it in a way that you don't find acceptable. One thing people are doing to troll Elon Musk on this is that they're they edited a picture of Elon Musk into making him look like a pregnant clown, which is almost certainly some kind of insider internet troll thing. But it may really just be more simplistic, obvious. Let's make him pregnant to mock him one way or two ways, since he's anti-transgender and almost certainly anti-women too, if I was to guess, and just make him look like a clown for obvious reasons that he is looked upon as being a clown in many instances. But yeah, I can certainly say as a content creator, as we showed that entire trailer, Sword and Fairy looks like a Chinese style Final Fantasy type game, turn-based RPG game. You can see Billy Billy being labeled in the top right there on the video. That is just hard burnt into the image. Anyways, I was saying, as a content creator, I let people make clips of my videos, but if YouTube introduced the thing where people could take my videos and AI change them in some way, I don't think I would be cool with that. Even if it did get me more views, even if it did get me into the YouTube Partner Program, I think I would very quickly, after being accepted into the YouTube Partner Program, opt to disable that. Now this is weird, and this is probably a scaling issue, so you're not seeing it. I'm seeing right now two solid lines here being shown. What I am seeing over on the preview screen, though, is flickering lines that are blinking in and blinking out. I don't know if that is an issue of the auto scroll alone. Yeah, I think it is, because once I get to the bottom, the auto scrolling stops the blinking on this red line, which is also blinking. Interesting. So I'm creating this blinking effect that I'm noticing. I'm not sure if that would show up in the trailer. Like the red bar here is also blinking until we get to the bottom of the screen, and then it stops. Which, now, overall though, it does look like Gematsu articles look alright. Here's Demon Bride Additional Game on Steam, which is a fighting game, which I was not expecting that. I would have sworn it was a visual novel. We do have several more Gematsu articles to go through, but first I want to take a bathroom break. One thing I did is I noticed that when in full screen mode, if you rotate a horizontal image, it rotates negative 90 degrees instead of 90 degrees. So I have implemented that, so now it will be more in line with the way you would watch other things. I also put in the text scroll at the top, but I obviously don't have it at the right size, and I'm looking to drastically change that anyway, so tweaking that would only help so much. Alright, well, we will be right back after I take a short break. Okay, I'm back. Took longer than I probably should have in that break, but whatever. We're gonna blow through all of the Gematsu articles very quickly here. Let's see. Pikmin 3 Deluxe has been rated for Switch 2 in Europe. A Nintendo Switch 2 edition is incoming, question mark. In this case, we can see that the image here, which is a separate image of the European PEGI rating system, is fully stretched out, and the text is going a little bit longer. And honestly, I guess in the case of Gematsu 2, there's just no reason to have the auto scroll. So I'll just come over here and exclude this. Sure. And then that will be the entire domain of Gematsu, not auto-scrolling, going forward. Which is going to, I think, start to limit us to what things actually do auto-scroll and what things actually don't. And it may very well be that for most things it doesn't, and that I really should, instead of excluding certain pages, include only a few domains, not pages, a few websites. I do expect that we will probably see a decent number of we'll probably see a decent number of oh man, I have just totally lost my train of thought. The problem here is that with my current setup, there's like one little white pixel that is on OBS that is the bottom of some button, and I can't see what it is because I have the scroll bar over it. But every time I look at it, I go, oh darn it, there's a white dead pixel on my screen, which is way worse than the chunk of black dead pixels on my screen, which right now I can't even find on my screen. Like, I know it's here somewhere, but when it is amongst a bunch of other blackness, it is actually pretty difficult to see. So, yes, it sucks to have a brand new monitor and have a dead pixel right in the middle of it, but if it was bright white instead of black, which would be a stuck-on pixel or a stuck-on backlit pixel, that'd be a big difference there. But yeah, that keeps distracting me, to say the least. Plus, I'm just inherently distractible. Yeah. Anyways, we were talking about the Gematsu articles. Grand Blue Fantasy is coming to Steam on March 10th, 2026 in the West. It's not compatible with the existing mobile or browser versions. This is from Cygames. I don't think I really would want to play Grand Blue Fantasy, and if I was going to play it, I probably wouldn't prefer to play it on mobile and have crossover progress. Inherently, I just can't see myself wanting to play a mobile game. It would just be too much time commitment to actually make footage and get the footage out there. You can kind of see that they've just kind of taken the original art and added some stuff on the left and right to squeeze it in. And I guess it is interesting that the way they've done this is by adding a bunch of stuff or moving a bunch of stuff around. Moving on. Let's see. Scroll to the top. Let's see. Japanese game creators discussed their 2026 ambitions. Here you can see a montage of Japanese creators, mostly Japanese guys, with a very standard, mostly Japanese bowl cut, haircut style too. I could scroll down through this, but it's kind of pointless. I'll just say check this out on Gematsu if you're interested. It is a far cry from your ambitions versus what you actually are able to create and accomplish. I imagine this is all from a Famitsu article or Twitter. I would assume a Famitsu article. But yeah, it's nice to see creators have ambitions, certainly, but that and a can of beans will get you a can of beans. That is not how that saying goes. And then they have a Code Vein character trailer for Valen Voda. If you want to check that out on Gematsu. Code Vein 2 is not out yet. And then Falcom is developing an unannounced Trails and Yee's games, additional new title due out in 2026. Which, yeah, there's a lot of Yee's games and a lot of Trails games. I hadn't realized it was all from the same publisher, actually. And see, that's already the end of the Gematsu articles. Had I not taken a long break in the middle here, we probably would have been done under an hour. And that would bring us to Gaming on Linux, and you can see that Gaming on Linux is interstitial, is small enough that everything fits perfectly, but there are no Gaming on Linux articles. And then that brings us to GameDeveloper.com. Is fitting perfectly too, so we'll leave it at that. And then I shrunk the text to make all new games on Steam fit. And even in shrinking the text, that works pretty well. And so we already are at all the new games on Steam. It's the same old procedure still. When I go like this, I am going to be gesturing to close things, but now that so much of the screen is being taken up by stuff, I can't middle mouse click here and then go down like that in many cases. Or I didn't think I could, but it did just work. If I swipe like this, I would be leaving the thing on open to make a YouTube short. And if I click follow, that means I'm really interested in it. And for the time being, I will probably hover my mouse over on this slide. Let's see, why does this not have a checkbox? Well, this is weird. I need to figure out why this doesn't have a checkbox when it should have a checkbox. An empty checkbox at that spot. Doesn't have a checkbox, but it's just not being displayed. Nope, it's totally missing. And I still kind of hate that this is at 120% zoom, but it does allow me to go down to 100 zoom and show what the page would look like in that form, and then say, hey, well, this makes a lot more sense. And so by not trying to force it to always be at 120 zoom through Violent Monkey scripts and through changing the CSS, I am giving myself the opportunity to go back to much more of an original depiction. I'm not sure that anything really being changed that much. I'm also trying to use better code that is in the CSS so that in any size it still looks correct. And see, this one has a checkbox, so don't know what specifically went wrong there with that one page. It's the first time we've seen something like that. And yeah, I haven't worked on the follow list cleanup to do a better job on that. There is still a big amount. There's still a big amount of stuff that needs to be worked on, and I'm just not really focusing on it. But honestly, if these digital projects are the things I'm not focusing on, and I'm finishing other projects, that's fine. I had forgotten that I had already put some initial code for this close button, and the close button actually does work. It's just not there originally. You have to click something to make it show up. And for some reason, it seems like every time I talk here I'm wheezing. I got this Skippy protein powder peanut butter and I've been enjoying that. It's probably the easiest, best way to get protein and have protein stored for emergency, or just have an emergency food. But one of the problems with it, I will say, is that it's a lot as far as just eating scoopfuls of peanut butter. And if you're not adding bread and jelly, which then adds carbs and sugar to it, yeah, you can only eat a couple scoopfuls, and I definitely had too much in my mouth at once and had a painful experience feeling it burn all the way down. As well, not burn per se, but be painful as this big chunk of peanut butter is pressing on all the sides of my esophagus, pushing everything down. I do think the heartburn, acid reflux, after just a couple days of taking pills, is back to being normal. I'm increasingly still trying to eat more while sitting upright instead of lying down and eating, which is what's causing that. And I'm trying to clear off an actual kitchen table to eat at. Yeah. I'm still, I guess, instead of using gestures, moving the mouse up and closing the tabs more. And yeah, do I think any of these games are actually going to be good? No. This Auto Pet Racers I don't think is from the same people that made Super Auto Pets. But if it is the same people, then it's kind of weird that they didn't think of that quicker and earlier. So it's like Super Auto Pet style animation, while something I think closer to that Monosumeme horse racing horse girl game that is not pronounced that way at all. I've completely forgotten what the name of that is. It is very much the case now that Vampire Survivors is recontextualizing a lot of the games that I have been looking at on Steam, and so there might just be a lot of games that I dismiss, although in fairness, it kind of doesn't even matter. I imagine I had dismissed a bunch of those types of games already. And if anything, there might be an argument to reconsidering some of these. This is something that probably is part auto clicker, but I'll give it a chance. Fish Tank Simulator doesn't look fun. It is amazing how much the Steam Deck can display with just hundreds potentially of numbers showing up on screen and a whole bunch of particle effects. But yeah, the reality of it is that since the base animations of Vampire Survivors is just 2D sprites, you could put hundreds, if not thousands, of numbers and animations above it. The Steam Deck is powerful enough to handle that as far as the GPU goes. Most GPUs, almost all of them, would be able to handle that. Maybe a cheap phone wouldn't. Which, speaking of phones, the Fairphone 6 apparently is out. Although, it seems like you can only buy it in euros. But you can, I think, ship it to the United States. Which is a phone with a replaceable battery. So, probably would be the Fairphone 7 or 8 that I would get, and I would hope that the CPU in it is powerful enough. You can have Android on it, or you can have their own de-Googleified version of Android. I still would probably recommend Android, though. But yeah, there is what is this? Some kind of typing game? I don't know what this is. Looks like it's just some random assets on deeper inspection. Then again, I lost my chain of thought. Just said chain of thought instead of train of thought. Chain of thought actually is a better saying. Got another visual novel for the furry fans out there. It's weird how things are just kind of out of place, and so my eyes aren't directly directed to the direction we're going, or towards the things. Yeah, these are also smaller, so that might be part of the problem too, is it might make some sense to scale some things up, and we may find that scaling something up a little bit bigger may just help overall. There is even an argument to getting rid of the title in total at the top here. I think in the YouTube shorts I do drop the title and then mostly drop some of this. We don't have the too many SteamDB plugins happening. And I thought I had fixed this and changed it, but apparently not. So here's the SteamDB plugin, is this entire box. I've hidden the logo, but I was also converting this into a singular line, which would make more sense, and I guess that stopped. I didn't get as far as I thought I had with that. Well, no, here is exactly the same box, and so it's working for some and not for others. Interesting. I don't know why that would be the case. But yeah, this is ideally what I want it to do, is just to take up one line showing who's online now, the 24-hour peak and the all-time peak, and arguably maybe this too should be moved out of the way because it's not as relevant of information, but it is information that I look at fairly often. So there is an argument to keeping where it is. And that is a plugin I cannot replace myself because it would be too much work to have it connect to SteamDB and always work with SteamDB instead of just using the official plugin. But it is easy enough, or relatively easy, to change the way it looks and save some space. There's an argument to getting rid of things like this as far as recommendations too, because that may just not be very relevant to other people, but it's similar to something. Yeah, we have just a little bit of rewording needed, which I could probably just delete this entire sentence, really. Follow this clean up interstitial. Which, let's see. Let's just reload so the auto scroll stops working. Do I think that there's going to be anything super interesting? Look at this 1.40 update, and I imagine that is it. Again, I plan on using a better follow list cleanup than this newsfeed that Steam gives you, because this newsfeed only really gives you updates to things that have been changed, while it doesn't have you actually consider things that have been around for a long time. Let's see. Problem here is I think the auto scroll was programmed to exclude only things with store.steampowered.com/app, but this is /news/app. So let's evaluate this game. It's rated very positively by 862 players. Rhythm mini games looks good enough. It's never been on sale, apparently, but I will put it on the wish list. And then the end show interstitial here looks good too. So yeah, it definitely would have been under 2 hours had I not taken a break, but why make myself miserable for an hour in that process? That's going to be it for the stream. We'll see you on Wednesday, more than likely, for one last stream and for the year, and then yeah, hopefully we will be in a good position for a 2026, and we can only hope 2026 is better as a YouTube content creator and better in general. Alright, thank you for watching. Have a good evening.